everyone, this is Steve Weintraub with Collider at the Cinema Center at the Toronto International Film Festival, and I want to give a huge thank you to Range Rover Sport for being our sponsor this year, allowing us to cover all sorts of movies at TIFF, like the 10th anniversary of Whiplash. How are you guys doing?
Good. Happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm very old now.
Apparently. How does that feel like?
Just, worse. It doesn't get better, as you will both discover.
You know something? I'm gonna echo with what you're saying, because 10 years ago I could lift my arm up perfectly, and now not so much.
Yeah, I mean that was okay.
Right, in terms of it hurting though.
Oh yeah,
Like
no.
there's
everything hurts.
Right, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, you just get used to that.
Right. What is it like actually? Because a lot of times movies that come out, they're popular, and for a little bit, and then they sometimes fade. But every once in a while, there's a film that just explodes, and it's one of those things that everyone sees, everyone loves, and it's Whiplash. This is one of those films that is beloved by so many people. I guess, what is it like being part of a film like that?
I mean, it's very, very kind of you to say that. I'm sure I could quibble with aspects of that, because it's always. I mean, I guess I still think of it as this small little film, and certainly how it felt when we made it. Certainly didn't. I remember even when we were sort of releasing the film. I can't say it felt like there was. It felt like we always had to be kind of. Fighting to get heard a little bit. It was still a movie about a jazz drummer, a sort of drama in a music conservatory. So it kind of always felt like we had a little bit of a little bit of an uphill climb on that front. So I don't know. I remember that just being kind of sort of a little bit in shock that it sort of got any audience at all, and any sort of response at all beyond like beyond a very select sort of coterie, and have been sort of surprised since then to see it I guess have hopefully some staying power for certain folks. But yeah, it's hard for me to think of it as anything but this little film that we did in not enough shooting days, and had to kind of drive ourselves crazy to make it. But
not enough money, not enough time, and it's
what
it has endured. It will endure because it's brilliant. It's a brilliant piece of work, and I'm as proud of Whiplash as of anything work related in my life. And I mean, there's hasn't been a week that's gone by probably, unless I was in a cabin in Montana, that I haven't had somebody come up to me and go on and on about the impact that Whiplash had on them. I'm tremendously proud to have been a part of it, and really excited that it's being re-released and people can see it in a theater again.
Yeah, that was also a surprise. Like I wasn't, I didn't know that Sony was going to do that. So
I'm
that
going
was
to tell
cool.
you something. People like the movie.
All right, this is. I'm beginning to believe it.
It's pretty good.
It's very nice to hear.
So there was a poll that was released. I'm sure you know this, but if you don't, I will bring it up. Of all the films at Sundance to premiere, Whiplash won. Like Whiplash was listed as the #1 premiere of all of Sundance.
And I, of course, wasn't there. We were just talking about this. I was busy making a failed sitcom in LA at the time. But even from there, the impact of when it landed at Sundance, the waves were crashing on the beach in LA. It was a phenomenon, and rightly so.
Well, the thing for me that is the craziest part of this movie is that you shot it. For people that don't realize, Sundance is in January, end of January. You shot this movie in, I believe, October. You were
we finished in October. I think you're right.
So you finished
September shoot.
September into October. Either way, you're then editing the movie October, November, December, January. And the thing about this movie is the editing is incredible. Like fucking awesome. And you have like this much time to cut it. You can't overthink anything. And then you're premiering at Sundance. So what was that actually like for you when you finally had footage and you're in the editing room and you know everyone wants to premiere at Sundance? You have like no time to cut, and yet you made something like phenomenal.
Credit has to go to Tom Cross, the editor, who I've been smart enough to then sort of glom onto and do everything with him since then. But this was our first thing together. I mean, we did the Whiplash short together to try to raise money for the feature. But basically, Whiplash as a concept was the first thing we did together in the editing room. And it was. I don't, I kind of remember it as a sort of constant triage situation. I mean, it was sort of how the shoot felt as well, where there was, Whiplash was the movie where there wasn't enough time to shoot it, not enough time to edit it, not enough time to mix it. I even remember the mix stage being also very, very crunched, and we had to kind of be, I had to sort of have it itemized, how many hours we were going to spend on what reel, and if we were still on a certain scene for more than 2 hours, then we were in trouble. It's similar to shooting, where we had to kind of know how many takes and things like that, and when to sort of cut
How
bait
many
and
takes?
go.
One.
Because JK, just as you probably know, just needs lots of takes to sort of get to.
It's known in Hollywood.
Yeah. No one wants to see
we're
the
not-
first take of JK.
We got to be in a double figures at least.
Yeah, so that's hard on a 20-day schedule. It's really
19, whatever.
which I wish they had told me beforehand.
Can I ask? Because I did a little research before talking to you guys, and I read in some places it was a 19-day shoot, and other places said it was a 20-day shoot. What?
It was 20. I think 19. I guess got codified somewhere because it sounds better. Maybe
Because I only worked 19 days, and all
for
the important
JK it
stuff
was
when
19.
I was there,
Sure, that's
obviously.
it. You had a day off.
Yeah, I did.
For those who didn't have a day off, like myself, it was 20.
But like what people don't realize is that, and being completely serious, that before you started shooting, you were probably in stress mode. Then through the whole shoot, you're freaking out. And then you're freaking out every day after to try to deliver a movie for Sundance. So you are in like that heightened adrenaline state for months. What the F was it like for you after that Sundance screening when you were like when you could finally breathe?
I don't entirely remember. I mean, I think, I guess I would just say that in terms of like the making of it, that state of adrenaline, certainly probably looking back was helpful in its own sort of, indirect way, that the movie is about that kind of state in a way. So, not that it had to be made in that compressed time frame, but there was something about the run and gun, not overthinking it, like you said, not second guessing. I think I also I know in myself, and I've learned in myself, like I can fall victim very easily to the overthinking, second guessing kind of end of the spectrum where you sort of hem and haw, almost to infinity. And so there was something about the pressure cooker atmosphere of how Whiplash was made and edited and cut and mixed, every aspect of it, that I think maybe helped sort of preserve it from some of that. It's not an overthought movie. So there's some kind of a gut emotion that comes across that was there in its conception there when we shot it, that I guess we were able to preserve by not, overcooking it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and in the shooting of it, it was the ideal combination that doesn't happen very often from my perspective of Damien and Sharon and, the whole team like being immaculately prepared, despite the fact that I'm sure pre-production wasn't as long as it should have been, and Damien always knowing exactly what he wanted, but always being open to whatever Miles and I and whatever in the cast were bringing to any given moment too. So that was a rare gift that Miles and I have talked about it. At the time we talked about it, and off and on over the years about how that's. It happens sometimes. There are, some other directors that I feel is a similar way about that, having that combination of immaculate preparation, but openness to collaborating, and it was a beautiful thing.
I also read, again, could be wrong, that you knew exactly what shot you wanted, so you weren't doing as much coverage as, say, some people might do. Like, I need this look, we're going to cut to this, we're going to go to this.
Yeah, I had, partly because I was so freaked out about our shooting schedule, I kind of had made sure to sort of storyboard everything, and anything that involved music, I'd sort of cut my storyboards, which were mostly pretty bad storyboards, stick figures and stuff, just what I could draw, but they were enough for me and to kind of know what I needed. I would cut those to the music and sort of see, then I could kind of edit the storyboards based on the music, and vice versa, and sort of, so yeah, ideally you'd kind of wind up on set only shooting what you needed to shoot. But I remember it, kind of to JK's point, I remember it being a little bit of both. That yes, there were certain scenes where it was just this line of script or this measure of music, and we get this angle, and that's it. But there was a lot of stuff where we kind of needed it to feel a little messier and shot it in a messier way, and where I remember we would just be letting the camera roll, and Miles would just be drumming, and till eventually the sweat, we don't have to spritz him with fake sweat because the sweat is real, and JK's voice would actually be getting hoarse, and at that point you want the actors to kind of, like JK was saying, you need the actors to feel the freedom to actually just inhabit the space and make the scene their own, rather than hemming them in too much with your preconceived notions. So I remember it being a little bit of both in a way, where there was a little bit of that kind of really regimented sort of shooting approach, which was sort of how I had it in my head. I always imagined it had to be a movie that JK's character would have made. It's kind of how he, that it would have this metronomic kind of right angles sort of precision to it. But to make a bad metaphor worse, it's also ostensibly a movie about jazz musicians. So within that codified structure, you need to have some room for improvisation, some room for play, some room for messiness, and that's where you wind up really just relying on great actors.
I can't believe that's the first time I've heard that metaphor. Of course,
it's pretty bad, isn't it?
No, it's absolute perfection, and also it just occurs to me again how important it is to what this movie is, that he, Miles, myself, Tom Cross, all have musical backgrounds. That was, I think, crucial to.
That really, because we didn't have time to rehearse, I remember. So it's like the fact that JK actually conducted in his youth and Miles played drums.
I want to touch on this actually, because when you were doing the short to raise money, and I read that you were meeting with JK based on a recommendation or something, and you were telling him how
Jason and Helen had put us in touch,
something to the effect of, we can cheat you conducting or whatever, and could you sort of talk about that initial meeting and your background?
All right, I'm going to tell the whole story. We got time, right? Jason Reitman sent me the script. He and I obviously had collaborated before, and Helen and I met during this process. I read the script. He sent me the short and the feature, because at that point they already knew they were going to make the short. The feature was written first, and then in order to generate funding, they thought, we'll make the short film as a proof of concept, take it to festivals, see what happens. So he sends me the script. I'm getting goosebumps by page 2. It's everything I ever hoped I could ever read in a screenplay, and I'm falling in love with it. So I go, yes, please, I would like to meet this guy. They set up a meeting at a restaurant in Studio City, and because I'm an idiot, I've just read this genius screenplay about jazz, the quintessential American musical form, and primarily African-American art form of American music. The guy whose name I've never heard before, who wrote it, is named Damien Chazelle, and I'm picturing Antoine Fuqua. So I'm thinking I'm going to walk into this restaurant, there's going to be this tall, elegant black guy with a beret or something, and I'm looking forward to meeting him and having this conversation. And I walk into the restaurant. I think I was right on time. You were a few minutes early, so you were there. And no, you weren't late. and I my recollection is that I basically did one of these, like looked right through him, and he's standing up, and and I went, oh wow, you're Damien Chazelle. That's what a Damien Chazelle looks like. I had no idea. And then, one of the first things that after we did the obligatory, I think you're great, which we actually both meant, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Feel free to jump in there.
That's why I was early.
I mean, whatever. Then he quickly jumped into the, trying to alleviate my concerns about the musical aspects of it, and didn't want me to be intimidated, and was saying we can use doubles, and we'll have a technical advisor and all this. And I sort of looked blankly at him and went, did Reitman not tell you that I have a degree in music and I thought I was going to be Leonard Bernstein when I grew up? That was my original plan. And I'm not a jazz guy, but I'm going to be conducting these scores. I'm going to learn this music. I'm not just going to be, some actor waving his hands up there. And Miles, by the way, plays the drums. So go figure.
Yeah. It was meant to be.
It absolutely was.
So another interesting fact about the making of this film is that you got into a car accident, I believe, in the third week of filming, or am I wrong about this? So talk.
I think so. Yeah, sometime. Yeah.
But so talk a little bit about that.
Sometime in the middle. Of the film.
And then the stress of knowing you can't leave set. You need to keep going.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't that. It was sort of a. I think I remember hearing that the car accident sound worse than it was. It was. I wasn't like seriously injured or anything, but they did. I guess there's certain things they have to do to have. I remember when we were back on set the next day or whatever, there had to be a person there monitoring to make sure.
Concussion protocol.
Concussion expert or something, to just see if I start sounding weird or something. Like, it was the type of accident where you could have a concussion, but it wasn't. I don't know if I actually had one, or if I did, it was minor. Anyway, so it's actually not my main memory of the of the shoot.
I had totally forgotten that. That was
right.
That was freaky.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, what was told to you, but no, because actually I remember. But you didn't you? Now, see, I'm remembering my own probably exaggerated version of what actually happened. Did you break something? Like, I want to say you broke a rib, but I know that didn't happen. You strained something.
I didn't break a rib. Miles Teller broke my rib.
Oh, right.
He tackled me to the stage. Yeah. Right. So I spent the last 2 days of the shoot with 2 cracked ribs. Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
So I did all this research. I never knew this part.
Yeah.
See, that's the real story.
Yeah,
I think much more than the car accident. It's that Miles Teller.
The one time Miles
sent
got
this man to the hospital
when he attacks Fletcher. Flies over the drum set because he can't take anymore and tackles me to the floor and gets dragged off. Yeah, I think we actually did two whole takes of that, and on take 2,
Did you know immediately?
Oh yeah, because it was actually the second time I've had broken ribs 4 times. I'm very fragile. Yeah, that was the second time. So I knew it was, but it wasn't. And again, it wasn't terrible. They weren't displaced fractures. It was It wasn't fun, but it was.
Seems like the only person who didn't suffer on this shoot was Miles.
Yeah, we got to do something about that.
I mean, you did slap him, so there's that.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that's actually one of the. I mean, listen, there's so much about this movie that's fantastic, but Miles really wanted to be slapped, and not every person wants that.
No, and whatever Miles is into is we're not here to judge anybody or anything. You be you. No, that was another part of the beauty of him being so prepared, knowing what shots he wanted. We didn't have to get 17 angles on me slapping Miles. So I felt comfortable enough, and Miles was certainly gung-ho about, let's not pull this and make it a stage thing. Smack me, and we'll do it. And I really enjoyed it. And it, we couldn't have done that we could have. It wouldn't have been as effective to do that a different way. And we probably only did 3 or 4 takes. I don't.
Yeah, one of the things though about the film is, and it really is it's about a lot of things, but it's also like, what does it take to be great, And I'm not really sure where I'm going with this, but in terms of a question, but as I've gotten older, I think when I was younger, I didn't understand what you really have to do to be great at something, and I think this is one of those films where you really have to pay a price if you want to get to another level.
And another thing that we talked about at that first meeting was how important that ambiguity of the end of the film is, that Fletcher is not a snidely Whiplash evil bad guy, and Neimann is not a 100% victim. I mean, that's obviously the relationship. He's an abusive, sadistic sociopath, but what is the price of greatness? And it's interesting that I got a friend who's a classical orchestra conductor, Darko Budrac, who is one of the few people who in the wake of the movie, because, you know, people were recognizing me and talking about the movie and going, oh my God, you're so horrible and mean in that movie. And Darko was like, yes, finally somebody gets it, you know. And I was like, oh man.
Disturbed you even more.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you are that level of musical genius and you hear in your head what it can be and you're not hearing it, you know, that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that everyone wants, I'm going off on a tangent, but a lot of people just want something, they want to be great, but they don't want to put in the work. And, you know, this is the extreme, but it is like, you really have to work for it if you want to, you know, but anyway, so you think back on the shoot, what's like a day of the shoot that you like, you know, because I'm sure you have specific memories, but is there like one day that like really always stands out during the filming?
10 days just you know, flipped by. I mean, the studio band days were amazing. You know, the opening scene with Miles. I mean, every moment I was blessed to do in this movie was a joy. The terrifying day for me, as a guy who was musically trained, but my hands just don't connect to my brain, was the little 16 bars that I had to play on the piano in the jazz quartet scene in the bar later in the film when Miles comes to, you know, happens across me in the bar, and we have that great scene at the table. And you know, Damien told me well ahead of time. He was like, I'm not going to do the hand double thing or whatever. He goes, I need you to just these 16 bars here. I need to be able to go face, hands, pull, you know, do whatever I want. You need to learn this. And I was like, and it's not difficult, you know, for a pianist. It's pretty easy. For me, I mean, I practiced hours on that thing, and it was so hard to stop my hands from shaking when we were shooting those scenes because it was so intimidating. And I'm with, you know, Fufu, the drummer. I mean, these legendary LA jazz guys. And I'm like actor boy going, you know, it was that in that way, that's maybe the most memorable day on set for me.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that day, but I don't remember. I didn't remember. You must have hit it. You're
that's acting.
It's, you know, it's a real actor here. It seemed comfortable to me. I mean, I definitely remember doing the because it was that same day, same set. You know, him and Miles at the table having their sort of long dialogue together, and it was. I think it was like week 2 of the shoot, I want to say, or about a weekend or something. And yeah, it was just sort of, I mean, it's one of those things where you just kind of hope that 2 actors will sort of click together, that there'll be a certain kind of chemistry. But again, like we didn't really get to rehearse the film. And I think that's why I want to say that was your first scene, because the first week I think we kept you guys separate, and I want to say that might have been either it was their first scene together or it was like one of their first scenes together. But just once we started doing, whether it was that or something else, you know, around the same time at the shoot, starting to get them together in the frame, and just feeling that chemistry, you kind of knew, okay, the movie has a chance because there's a heartbeat. There's a heartbeat there that, you know. You can't write it on the page. You can't sort of conjure it out of thin air. It has to come from 2 human beings sharing a space within a camera image, and whether there's some kind of something happening under the words, because sometimes there isn't, and you're stuck with just filmed reproduction of the words, and that's not what you want. But with JK and Miles, there was something there. The only time I'd heard them together was we did do one table read, I remember, which was which I felt very reassured by. Even though table reads are I find normally kind of horrible. Here, just getting to hear them speak to each other, you know, in some semblance of character, just getting to hear the 2 voices ping off each other. I could feel that there was some some kind of relationship at the heart of this thing that was going to work, that was going to be resonant. But then to have that affirmed on screen, whether we did this, whether it was when we did this scene or another scene around the same time, was I remember that.
With the shooting schedule, because it was only 20 days and you had no money, were you able to have any sort of control on what you were shooting that first week? Or was it sort of like, this is just how it's going to shoot? Do you remember?
It was a lot based on, we had a brilliant production designer, Melanie Pazis-Jones, who kind of, a lot of it was based on just when you have that little time to shoot, it really becomes about how do you eliminate company moves. And so there's actually a lot of kind of like little locations in this movie. We had to kind of make it all one location, And so basically we took over one building in downtown LA. I think it was the Palace Theater. And every floor became a place where Melanie built the set of, say, their practice room, or it became Miles's dorm, or it became JK's apartment, or, that might have been a different building, but, certainly the theater or one of the theaters. I just remember stairways, hallways, it all just became, so we were just, and even the jazz club where JK plays piano, where they have that dialogue together, was not actually an interior. That was actually just the front entrance, sort of walk-in entrance of the Palace Theater that Melanie added a wall to and turned into an interior jazz club.
I totally forgot that. Yeah.
So it's one of the only ways that we managed to actually make the movie in the amount of time we did, is that we almost never had to leave. We kind of were hunkered down in this one building, just going from floor to floor, and it's like everything was kind of rotated around us like a jigsaw puzzle.
Well, and then the way he and Sharon shot it, and the way it was lit and everything, is like we weren't sitting around for an hour and a half waiting for them to light stuff. It was we got a lot of meat done every day.
Yeah, Sharon Meir, just the DP, just moves like it was like a military unit, just kind of going in and just figuring out the most efficient way to light things and shooting on the fly, but trying to make it look as precise as possible. Nick Harvard, our AD, was also obviously he was the one sort of really kind of keeping the train on the tracks. So yeah, we were lucky to have people working at their top to make that a reality.
I'm curious, you made the film for a certain budget. If you had, say they had given you like a little bit more money, was there something that you had in the script or an idea that you wanted to actually add to the film that you ended up not being able to pull off because of limitations? Or were you able to, like, everything in the script was exactly what you wanted?
I wouldn't have changed anything, except maybe it'd be nice if we had all, it's like you look back, you go, yeah, it'd be nice to not feel so a gun to your head every day. So just I guess I would add a little more comfort to the shooting of it, the editing of it, but in terms of the actual concrete.
I'm actually curious, like if you had other scenes that you had to pull out because, we have 20 days and we have $3 million and this is not going to work.
Oh, that's a good question. No, I don't think... No, and actually, it's funny because there was a fair amount that we shot that wound up being cut out in the edit. I don't recall cutting a ton of stuff from just the script just to get us into shape for the budget. We must have done something here and there, but
yeah, I don't remember much difference and I don't remember much at this point because I'm old again. But no, the script that Jason and Helen sent me, when we met a year and a half before we shot the film, but before we shot the short film, was I think very much the script that we ended up shooting. And then as he said, then they even found that there was, we could have done it in 18 days because they cut a few things.
I can't believe you had deleted. I can't believe you have
had a nap that day.
Right?
That one day.
I can't believe you have deleted scenes from the 20-day shoot, just because it's like that's not much time for people that don't realize.
Yeah, there used to be, it was actually lovely stuff of JK alone in his apartment. There was all these scenes of sort of Fletcher's home life that didn't, and of course, then by the way, he's one of, I think, 3 that I can think of now, directors who's allowed me into an editing room, and I wasn't there much, but I spent an afternoon. And
it was such a, actors always go, oh, you cut my scene, I was good in that scene with my acting, and shooting those scenes was great, but at the end of the day, the movie's about Andrew Neimann's perspective on everything, and Miles is, am I right, in every scene of the movie Miles is in it? Yeah. Am I? Yeah. So taking away the moments of Fletcher alone, and Fletcher on the subway, and Fletcher in his apartment, and seeing glimpses of why he's maybe none of that was important at the end of the day.
I was just wondering, have you released those scenes, or are they like in the permanent computer somewhere box?
It's going to be on the 10th anniversary VHS tape. Yeah.
We've got a great plan for it. We're going to pan and scan it. It's going to be, the sort of old box ratio.
But like some directors, like I'm going to use Kubrick as an example, like burned the negative so you could never see his deleted scenes. And others would be like, here's 30 minutes of the film that never made it. Yeah. Like, take a look. I mean, we don't like.
No, I think there might. I don't know on the original home video release if there was any. Because normally what I'll do is I'll just sort of look, and certain scenes will be the incinerator pile type of scenes, and then just by virtue of I don't think I did a good job on them, and then there'll be other scenes where I feel like in a vacuum they're quite nice, and I'm okay with them being out there. And but yeah, I don't know. The more I sort of learn, the more I kind of feel like I understand that instinct to just sort of, if it doesn't make it into the film, then you kind of, there's a reason for it usually, and you wanna sort of hide it. But in this case, I mean, certainly these scenes that JK is talking about, it's a particular example where it would be nice, for instance, maybe for them to be seen because they were taken out for such a specific reason that had nothing to do with the quality of the scenes, at least as I see them, or presumably as JK saw them.
Oh, I was fantastic.
It actually makes his performance much better. It's really a shame.
I mean, maybe he can win
it's
the
a shame
Oscar
that he
for that
didn't,
role
he didn't
next
get
time.
any. You could have gotten actual acclaim for this performance.
Yeah.
You'll get him next time. Next time, buddy.
Whiplash 2.
No, but
Electric Boogaloo, of course.
they are nice scenes though, so I'll see where they might be hiding.
That just reminded me that we did a DVD commentary.
Oh, right,
and
yeah.
Miles was like too busy being a movie star, so he couldn't be here that day. So
this is
so we
the
basically
routine.
spent our DVD commentary just trashing Miles. At least that was my main goal.
I remember the
Was to-
irony is kind of with him and Miles, somehow their schedules never aligned. So this is sort of repeating itself where it's like when we were initially releasing the movie, I just remember, I guess I was always available. So it'd be me and JK or me and Miles. Me and Miles were alone at Sundance. Me and JK were alone. JK and I were alone at Cannes. So we'd
Thank
kind
you for
of,
the grammar correction, by the way. Continue.
Yeah, I just didn't want anyone to think
You could also just
that
say
I
the
would
truth.
make that mistake.
You could just say the truth. They don't like each other.
Don't like to be in the same place at the same time. I mean, whatever. He's a nice guy. Whatever. You know what? This was one of the interesting aspects too of the whole shoot too, because I didn't know Miles, and I didn't. He had a couple of indie films that that he had made a real splash in, and people knew how good he was, and that's obviously why he was cast. I didn't want to watch those films. I hadn't seen any of those. I didn't want to see them because I wanted to play the scenes with the character. But Miles is an alpha, right? And for him to swallow that every day and just take this abuse and be, the wimpy little Andrew Neimann character was some really fine acting. And as soon as Damien said cut, Miles was like, how about them Eagles, Want to arm wrestle?
I'm different questions. I'm a really big fan of your work, and I'm just curious for.
He's addressing me, by the way. Just take a break.
Yeah, I'm a fan. He knows I'm a fan of his work, but I'm just curious though. What is the most nervous you've been before the first day of filming something? And I'll actually say the same thing to you. What is the most nervous you've been, like the night before the first day of the shoot?
Mine is easy. You go.
Well, I mean, mine is probably my first feature film, which was a tiny little, because I was a theater guy. I mean, I segued from music to musical theater, to all kinds of theater, and I was 40-ish before I started segueing into becoming a camera actor, and so I don't look like the new kid on the block. I look like I must be a seasoned veteran, and my first day on a feature film set was with Ted Demme on a movie called The Ref, and
I know that movie.
Yeah, that was my first, and it was it's not like it was a super dramatic or it was just kind of a functionary little character that led us to a certain situation. But I was terrified. I didn't sleep. Was in Toronto, actually. Flew up from New York. I was doing a Broadway show. I think I was doing Guys and Dolls on Broadway. Got the 2-3 days off to fly up and do my little scene. Didn't sleep, and was just like terrified. And I mean, and there have been things that have made me nervous in the meantime, but that was probably the most.
Yeah, I mean, I guess similarly, it'd be my first, or the night before shooting. I would say Whiplash, but probably specifically even the short film of Whiplash, just because. And to be honest, I don't really remember the night before, but I vividly remember day one of shooting the short, because that was my first time. I had done films before, but like student films with, friends, where I was where there was no real schedule, where you just kind of you get a little bit of money together to shoot on a weekend, and then you wait for to get the money to develop the film and that kind of stuff. So very off and on sort of shooting. This was like, okay, we've got 3 days to do this scene. Someone's paying for it, and we've got X number of people that we're getting together on set. It was a, what do you call it? A semi-professional shoot, and the first semi-professional shoot that I'd ever been on. And I was terrified day one, working with an actor of JK stature. You're welcome.
He was terrified. It was hilarious.
Well, I was going to ask you, could you tell?
Yes.
See, I tried to hide
absolutely. I mean, one of the remarkable
utterly
things
terrified.
To me, yeah, of course you were. I mean, come on. No, one of the most remarkable things to me was, first of all, how good that short film is. People who haven't seen the short film should watch the short film. What is it, 20 minutes? And second of all, the 15 months or 16 or whatever it was between that and shooting the feature, the maturity and the confidence that he had gained in the meantime, and because there was never ever a sense of that when we were shooting the feature. He always seemed like, despite the fact that he was a child, like he was in command, and he was.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, good acting.
Certainly, yeah. I learned some acting tricks from this guy, which I hadn't quite mastered during the short, because apparently my fear showed. But I just remember feeling just utterly out of my element and flailing about on day one. And the short was kind of a trial by fire for me, because it was 3 days, I remember. And each day I felt a little better than the day before. So by the end, I wouldn't say I was feeling confident, but at least I had put on hold my immediate instinct to find another career path. Because day one led me to just a place of just total, I'll finish this day out, and then I'm gonna go back to school or something, figure something else out. But yeah, I mean, it's the old adage of you learn by doing, and sort of learned by doing each of those days. Certainly, I remember still having plenty of nerves when we were shooting the feature, which, by the way, I mean, I kind of have to this day. I always find some element of shooting, stressful. It's both stressful and exhilarating. The edit is more of my comfort space, where there's not so much of a clock to your head, and you can really just play with the images in front of you, and you can be alone or semi-alone with them. Shooting, there's a kind of energy to it that can be both exhilarating and terrifying, and it depends what the circumstances are. So I still get butterflies to this day, especially at the beginning of any shoot. But if you ask the most intense butterflies I've ever had, and it would be, ironically, it'd be this 3-day short.
That actually makes the most sense. I'm just about out of time with you, but I just want to ask individual questions. I'm obviously a big fan. You know this. What are you working on right now in terms of, for fans of yours? Do you know when you're making another TV show or another movie?
No, I don't know precisely. I'm working on stuff, writing stuff. Hopefully, we'll be making something very soon, very shortly. Kind of getting ready for that, but can't really say more beyond that, as it's still everything's still.
I'll say it. It's Whiplash,
fragile.
the Broadway musical. We just
We had the announcement ready for next week. You fuck.
oops.
I have a few individual questions for you, if you don't mind.
It's all just scenes of JK alone.
Yeah, no, Andrew Neimann's not in it. Sorry, Miles.
You just worked with Clint Eastwood on Juror Number 2, I believe. What was it like making that film with Clint?
Well, it was fantastic, and when my wonderful agent sent it to me, he was like, "It's not a great part, but you probably a pass." But and I read it, and it's it's a very nice, medium small little supporting part in it. But I was like, "Are you kidding me? It's a Clint Eastwood movie. What am I going to not do a movie with Clint Eastwood?" And great cast and good script, and so yeah, it was an absolute no-brainer.
When did that? I didn't know about it. When
Well,
did that shoot?
we shot it. We were in, I think, week 3
Before the strike.
before the strike.
That's okay.
And I was like,
But since then, it's
and we all thought, we all thought that first of all, we thought there's not going to be a strike, and second of all, because I'm a naive idiot, I was thinking like, they're not going to stop Clint Eastwood from making would you stop Clint Eastwood from making it? No. But then, the strike came, and boom, everybody pulled the plug, and that was in June, and we didn't go back to work until whatever it was, October, and finished the film. We're shooting in Savannah, Georgia. It was a really wonderful experience. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm excited about it.
You also recently worked with Nick Cage, I believe?
No, we were in the same film. We still haven't met. It was the way. That's the way so many people talk about Oz back in the day. With and they'll say, "Hey, what was it like working with?" And I was like, people came and went so much on that movie, on that show, that there were a lot of people in it that I didn't work with. But no, my plot was it's Scott Hayes, who really conceived the whole idea and went to Mamet and asked him to write it, who plays the lead character, and it's a little bit of an Alice in Wonderland like kind of journey, because he has lots of intense scene work with like Nick Cage and then me, and then 3 or 4 or 5, 6 other wonderful actors playing very disparate characters. So I'm excited that I'm in a movie with Nick Cage, but I still haven't met the guy.
He's very, very nice.
So I hear.
Yeah, my last thing for you. I'm a huge fan of Invincible, hugely popular on Prime Video. At what point did you realize, oh wait, this is turning out real good?
I mean, I knew. I didn't know the source material. I'm not a big fan of that world on paper. They sent it to me. They read the script, and they actually originally asked me to play a different character in it, and I read it and I thought, wow, this is really interesting for a genre that I personally don't, I'm not a consumer of, and but at the end of the day, for a variety of reasons, whatever, I was like, it just doesn't feel, and it's silly to say for something animated, but it didn't feel like the right fit. And then they came back and asked me to play Nolan, and I was like, yeah, sure, great. Yeah, it's a cartoon. It'll be fun, And I realized, first of all, we got to actually record together, Stephen Yeun and Sandra Oh and I, which you almost never get to do, some of those family scenes, and not a lot, but a few days at least, and that was a really good way to sort of establish the tone, the vibe. But I didn't really get it until it came out, and people were stopping me on the street constantly for an animated show, and it's just, it's really, it's so well done and so well acted and everything, written and everything. It's become a real phenomenon, and really excited to be a part of it.
On that note, I just want to say to the two of you, congratulations on the what Whiplash has become and everything about the film, and on the 10th anniversary being at TIFF, and I just want to thank you so much for coming in the studio and giving me so much time.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
On that note, look for more interviews on Collider soon, and thank you for watching.